Well, hi everybody. How are you tonight? My name is Beckey Myers, or AKA Canadian Bacon, and I know you all are looking for Granny Lisa, but she may be running late today. So you've got Andrew and I. And Andrew, let me introduce Andrew. He is my son. He's 17 years old, and my husband was in the Air Force, and Andrew unfortunately doesn't know his dad ever in the Air Force, but we are survivors of my husband's suicide, which took place in December of 2022. So that's why we come on here and we do these podcasts on the second Friday of every month for 12 months. And this is our second one so far. And we're really glad that everybody is here. And we welcome any questions, any comments. There is a chat option. We'll read your questions. We'll answer your questions. This is a very raw and a very honest conversation that we have. So any questions are welcome, and we encourage them. Our number one goal is that we do not want to have another family sitting in the same situation that Andrew and I are. And that's one of those things that, we're trying to make sure that no one else has to deal with that. So with that being said, Andrew, would you like to introduce yourself?
So, as she said, I am Andrew, and I am the one who found my dad as he took his life. Yeah, it's been pretty difficult, but I've managed to make through the past almost year to readjust and get through my life.
Now, our last episode that we did was about woulda, shoulda, couldas. And it was actually very, very interesting. One thing I noticed was that a lot of our comments, a lot of the things that we put in each category were very similar to the previous categories. So today we're going to do a little bit different. Our number one theme tonight is going to be finding thankfulness. And that's a hard thing to look at for this season because we're coming into the holiday season. There are Christmas lights in my neighborhood already. There are, Christmas decorations everywhere, or Thanksgiving. And for our family, because my husband took his life on December 13th/14th, we didn't have a Christmas last year. I didn't even notice it was Christmas because we buried my husband on December 22nd. So it was Christmas, and I realized in that evening that it was, and I went upstairs and answered emails because I knew nobody would be working while I was doing that. I could just answer emails, shoot them off, and I was done. But this year, I have resolved to our family is not celebrating the holidays like we normally would. Christmas was my holiday. Thanksgiving, And the only reason is because I'm Canadian, and ours is in October, not in November. So I'm not, like Thanksgiving never really was the big holiday for me, but I would cook and I would do everything for the kids. So Andrew and his brother Kyle and their dad. So that was one of the things that we always made sure that we, took part in. And then Christmas obviously was my holiday. I, decorate the house. And Andrew, what are we doing with Christmas this year?
Leaving our house just the way it is right now. No decorations, absolutely none.
Yes. Now I have a question. Are you okay with that?
I am. Like, I understand that you feel very uncomfortable with that, but I'm also trying to celebrate it in my own way now. Because I
Okay.
had told you I'm not letting dad ruin that for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
I also don't want to ruin that for my future kids.
Mm-hmm. Now,
I don't.
one thing that I did tell you guys is that I wouldn't put a tree up in that house.
That's
That,
right.
I would do it in the new house. Any new house that I'm living in, that's where I will, return to traditions and things like that. But in the current house that we're in, I
Yeah.
won't I won't do anything. So hopefully we're only in that house for a short time and then we can move on. But let's talk about things that we're thankful for, because I think that the people who are watching the show, and we thank everybody watching, if you're watching it live or you watch it as a replay, we thank you that you're here. We want you here. We want you to share the show with people, any vets you're friends with, anybody who might need this, even family members who have been through this. Everybody needs to hear it. And here's the example one, and I know I'm going to go off on a tangent for a second, but I'm going to a wedding reception tomorrow, and a majority of the guests are going to be vets. And I talked to the groom yesterday, and they know that I do this podcast. So this is important, where I'm probably going to have a QR code, and we're working on something like that where we can share this message with everybody. So if you know anybody who needs to be on this or watch this, it's very, very important. But we wanted to think about things that we're thankful for right now. Andrew, I'm going to let you start with the thankfulness, because I think something that we did before your dad died really has been a big part of your life. So go ahead and explain that.
So it was, I want to say, it was February of 2022 that or that you joined our church that we are in now. You tell me all about it and how excited people were to meet me. So I come about 2 weeks later, and ever since then, I have been going there very, like, pretty much every Sunday.
So, what are some fun things that you did that you're thankful that you did, especially the one thing you did this summer that was through our church at War Hill?
One of the greatest things that we did was we did a mission trip to Costa Rica, and for me, that was that was amazing. That place is one of the most beautiful places ever. And even though I was severely sunburned at the end, I still got to see just how beautiful it is.
Mm-hmm.
I went ziplining sunburnt and I was having a blast.
But here's the thing, and your dad never knew that you were going to go to this trip, because we didn't know until January.
Hmm.
Do you think that helped you with some of the recovery that we've been going through? Yes, we've been in counseling, and
Yes.
guys, counseling is the number one thing that I can suggest for any widow or widower and the family members. Like, that is the vital piece right there.
Especially
But
kids.
yeah, oh yeah. My older son and Andrew have been in counseling, and myself, since a week and a half after everything happened, just after we buried your dad. So it's been definitely something that's been important. So how do you feel with Costa Rica, where where's your thankfulness with that trip?
A lot of my thankfulness was that I got to have fellowship with people who had been through some similar things, but also share just that strong faith and how they would just work, how we would all work together, and how much we loved one another.
Mm-hmm. And you
So,
saw people who didn't have a whole lot, so it gives you a new impression of being thankful for what you've got here.
yeah,
So,
where we were, there was like, believe it or not, it's a third world country, so there's little to no service, especially where we were.
and you got to stay in a resort, which was really nice. I actually, when I saw the pictures, was ready to go myself. You could have stayed home. I
Yeah,
would have gone in your place. So,
yeah.
yeah. So, is there anything else that you can think of that you're thankful for through War Hill?
I am thankful that they just dropped everything to come and actually just help us. The day that Dad had done this, it was beyond a blessing.
Hmm.
and we just knew we needed to stay here. There was no ifs, ands, or buts.
Hmm. Do you
It
remember
just
what I told everybody at church and how I said it?
yeah,
Look at everybody and go, it's because of you people I can't leave. So
yeah,
yeah. And they all, and our church is tiny. There's maybe 20 families in there. And we have another woman in there who's her spouse passed away, and he was a vet as well. So there are ties to a lot of veterans within our congregation. So yeah.
and
What
that woman's family is also inviting us over to Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving? Hmm. So what else have you had the opportunity to do, or that you're thankful for, since everything has kind of happened? And your what has where are you for thankfulness in that point? Not just War Hill, not Costa Rica, but what else in your life are you thankful for?
Well, I'm obviously thankful for you.
Oh, thank you.
Hmm. Let's see. I haven't
You're
put too much. Yeah, I haven't put a lot of thought in what else. So
okay. So one of the things that I would think that you're thankful for is the ability to still be in the home that we are in.
hmm
Um, you've been able to progress through with your merit badges and Boy Scouts to the point where your life and you're about to become Eagle.
yes.
Um, that you're looking at colleges and figuring out what you're going to do next year, or not next year, but the year after.
hmm
And you have that opportunity to even go to school in Canada if you want to, because you are a dual citizen.
Yeah.
Um, another thankful thing you should be thankful for is you got your license a week ago.
Yeah. I did, and I can make it to church now a lot more often without just having to ask a ride from my brother, who's incredibly unreliable, or you.
Yes. Yeah. So you've got things opened up. So that's a good thing for you. So yeah. So let me tell you guys a little bit about what I'm thankful for. Besides the kids, because when my husband passed away, I had a choice. My choice was to be a puddle of mush on the floor, not get out of bed, not do the things that needed to be done, or I could keep going because I had 7 heartbeats in my house, and one of them was not mine. I have the 2 kids, and I have 2 dogs and 3 cats. So I had to make sure that my house was being maintained. And unfortunately, we're in a situation where my parents are in Canada, my husband's parents are in Oregon, and we're in Georgia. So we are here basically by ourselves. So I was very, very thankful for obviously War Hill because they dropped everything to help. It wasn't even a question. I didn't have to ask for anything. They were there. So having a community in some sort of organization is incredibly important. So I'm
Yeah.
very, very thankful for the network of people that were around us at the very beginning. I'm thankful for you and Kyle. And you guys still have me concerned only
Mm.
because where we are.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm thankful for the fact that you guys were strong enough to kind of get through all of this situation, as horrible as it is, and as much as you should not have had to deal with this. I mean, bottom line, you shouldn't have. This should never have been
Yeah.
on our radar or yours or your brother's ever.
Yeah.
So, yeah, life did not deal us a fair hand on that one. Um, and then I have one other like really big person that I'm thankful for, and you know who that is, but I'm actually with him right now, and his name is David, and he kind of came into my life just at the right wrong time, if you can say that. We started just talking in March, and I say it was the right wrong time because, of course, most people have their opinions as to when you should start talking to, potential romantic relationships and stuff like that. Um, So I am thankful for David, and the support that he's given has been tremendous. And not only that, I mean, how's he helped you, Andrew?
He's coaching me through my Eagle project, and I'd say he's done a really, really good job
Hmm.
and is
So
continuing to do a good job.
he's sitting here, and I'm waiting for him to comment, but he probably won't. Um, so yeah, it for our family, David came in at the right time, and I'm really thankful because he's kind of, since he came into my life, he's had he's actually been there for when I was diagnosed with cancer when you were in Costa Rica, and
Mhm.
he was the only one at the house at the time that I got that phone call. Even your brother was at work, so
Yeah.
it definitely was, scary. But the another piece is that I'm thankful that I made it through the cancer surgery. I came out with a stage 0, so I didn't have to deal with, like I dealt with this alone, but not alone. But I got through it, and that's a hard pill to swallow because you have to, as a wife, and I mean, as a parent, as a kid, you don't have to see this part, but when your spouse passes, you lose that emergency contact person.
Yeah.
Like, who do you put as your emergency contact? You've got to find the right person to add on there. And that's another person that I'm very, very thankful for is our friends John and Johnny, because they they've dropped everything on more than one occasion to
Mhm.
help us out. And that's been, we, and they're not friends of ours. We call them family. Um, they're friends slash family. So that's just kind of the running joke. And he is my emergency contact. Like, he is definitely even though Kyle is technically the next of kin who's an adult, Johnny is actually my emergency contact for everything. And then grandma is.
Mhm.
So that's a big piece. But yeah, so it's finding thankfulness is very, very difficult to do, especially in the first year.
Yes.
That's where we are. And as and I'll you already know this, but um because of when your dad did it in December, it was right around the holidays.
Yeah.
And so my anxiety levels have started to rise because we're coming into that season.
Mhm.
So I'm thankful for the network of people that I have around me that understand when I look at them and say, my anxiety levels are really high right now. I can't
Yeah.
do this. And that's a good thing. And a benefit, as much as I hate to say it's a benefit, but one of the things that I came out with was a stronger sense of self, meaning that I will say no in a heartbeat. I don't feel obligated to do things that I used to before. Yes, I'm a people pleaser, but not as much as I used to be because I have to keep you and your brother going.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, yeah, those are the big pieces for me. So, yeah. But do you have any more that you would think that you were thankful for?
Well, definitely piggybacking off of, your comment with John and Johnny, I do want to thank them a lot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
again, like you said, more than one occasion, they dropped everything. They
Mm-hmm.
would let you and, dad stay over there for, racetracks or,
For NASCAR. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yep. It was expected. We would be down at their house for when we had to work the race.
Mhm.
So yeah. So they were family they were family even before this happened with your dad.
Yeah.
And I will tell you that, as much as it impacts what your dad did, um, as much as it impacts the direct family, it also impacts all of the friends and the network of friends that are around your family to a degree
Yeah.
that you never realize.
Didn't,
Um,
Pastor Johnny have to go back to therapy?
yeah, Pastor Johnny had to go handle some stuff because I don't know if it was necessarily all related to your dad, but you have to think about a pastor goes through a lot because they
Yeah.
hear all of the stuff from the congregation.
Mhm.
And our pastors have been phenomenal in terms of
Yeah.
doing everything. And this is the last thing they wanted to be handling at Christmas time. Nobody
Yeah.
wanted to. We couldn't even get a therapist who wanted to take us. So that was kind of one of the issues. But
Our lead pastor was in Israel when my dad had did this, and he fell on the floor, so
mhm,
yeah.
yeah. And it's amazing because our church has 7 campuses. And I think that, well, the main campus knew about it. I don't know what the other campuses knew, but it's not something that, I'm quiet about.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they know. And that's actually one of the things that I am thankful for is my outspokenness. Actually, I have a big mouth. I admit to it. And the reason I say that is because I am doing this podcast. I did approach a friend of mine who got me in contact with Granny Lisa, who basically helped develop this whole thing, which I'm thankful for her, because without this podcast, there we could there may be one person that this doesn't get through to if it wasn't here. But because we're here and we're talking about it, they may be here tomorrow. And I've seen people where I've looked at them and went, I just need you here tomorrow. And then the next day, and the next day after that. Because, and I tell people, I'm like, look, you have no idea what basically taking your life, committing suicide is going to do to your family and your friends. Your network
Yeah.
will never, ever be the same again. And
Mhm.
that's the truth. I mean, when you look at our lives, nothing that we had on December 12th is ever going to be the same. So
Mhm.
even, and here is the funny thing, and we've never talked about this, and I think it actually would probably be a good time to kind of mention this, is how it impacted our animals.
Oh, yeah.
because because when you're in a family or you're in a household or you have animals of your own, they don't understand. I mean, as a person, I have a hard time understanding, but an animal has no way to comprehend what's going on. And
Mhm.
so after everything happened with your dad, we had to break up, what, 3 or 4 dog fights because the
Yeah.
house was in turmoil. They could feel it, and it wasn't a surprise. And I mean, I spent, what, 1 or 2 nights at the urgent care with the dogs because they've
Yeah.
really gone after each other. So
Mhm.
it definitely is
And
it's
it's
something that
it's a lasting effect too, because there have been multiple fights since then, and it's never been this frequent, like, ever.
no, no, never, never. So it definitely, is something that it needs to be handled. But see, that's another piece that I'm very thankful for you and your brother for, because when they do get in a fight, I can't break them up myself. It's not
Mhm.
something that one person can do by themselves. It takes
Yes.
a minimum of 2 people to get them apart.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, the animals feel it. If you leave your animal just to go to work, they get stressed out about it. So, can you imagine never coming home again and what that would do to your animal? Not only that, when you look at your animals, your fur babies, who's going to take care of them? Because if you are single, who's going to take care of them? What's going to happen to that precious little ball of fur that you have, that you love dearly? What is going to happen to them? So, looking at that aspect of it, that's very, very important.
Animals do have feelings too,
Hmm.
and they will show it.
Hmm. I mean, ours have personalities of the yin yang. So, yeah, they do. They have personalities, they have feelings, and they do feel that stress. And any stress, like a death in the family, is very, very stressful. The way your dad took his life,
Yeah.
that multiplied it. So it's definitely one of those things that they feel it just as much as you do. If you're
Mhm.
sad, most of the time the animals are sad too. And
Yeah.
I think they actually felt it beforehand, because one of the things that your dad had said to me was, well, not to me, he said in one of the videos, is that he knew he had a problem. He knew there was a
Yeah.
problem and he didn't get help. and he knew for a while. And that's something that realistically he should have done. And the animals felt it because they got in a fight just
Yeah.
before he did it, and he
Yeah.
couldn't handle it. So yeah, it's tricky, but I'm
It is.
thankful. But ultimately too, I'm very, very thankful for Lisa and Peggy and Mike for helping put this podcast together and
Mhm.
getting the word out there. Because if you don't have if you don't talk about it, it's just going to be the stigma. Oh no,
Yeah.
because that's what I feel. Do you ever have that feeling from people?
Well, the thing is, I don't talk a lot about it outside of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I've said that, my dad has passed, but I never really tell anyone how.
How come?
Well, I mean, the only other people that I haven't told is the scout troop, and that's obviously because they're younger.
Okay. And
So,
that's one of the things that I told you to be very, very cognizant of at
and
the
I have.
beginning, because younger kids, you don't want to necessarily you want to talk about it, but you don't want to necessarily have that negative feeling with them.
Yeah.
When you first started going back to scouts and camp, because you went camping that first month, and do you remember what I told you?
Oh, yeah, just try to not do that. Or,
Not talk to the scouts about it, but if it came up or you started having a really hard time, to go talk to one of the adults,
yeah.
because they knew the scouts actually showed up at your dad's wake, so
Yeah.
and a couple showed up at his funeral, so that was
Yeah.
a big help. um
Mhm.
so yeah, I'm thankful that you have the scouts too, because it did give you purpose.
Yeah.
It
It
gave
did.
you something to do and to refocus, and even your school, because your
Yeah.
school was exceptionally great in terms of you didn't have to do any of the finals.
Yeah. Mhm.
They basically were like, look, you pass regardless. And you were given the option, which was it for history or computer
It
science,
was for history.
that you could do the final because it would give you something to focus on and not have
Mhm.
to think about what was going on in the house. But ultimately, your
Yeah.
teacher was like, if you don't do it, you still pass.
Yeah.
So that's a big one. Um, is there anything that you're thankful for that's not a person,
Hmm.
like a party, an event, um, a gift that you've received?
Yeah. Hmm.
Or how do you think that you're going to handle giving thanks this year for Thanksgiving when we're at the pastor's house?
Well, the best thing I can think of is just my, private prayer time. Because I haven't told you this, but I actually have a, prayer closet in my, bedroom. So I have that little, that little ornament thing that I ordered?
Mm-hmm.
That was for that.
Where in your bedroom?
The closet,
Okay, so you've moved stuff around in your closet.
pretty much.
Okay.
I cleared
Okay.
off the, little banister and put my Bible in there.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. That's good though. So you're thankful for learning about the war room, is what they're really called.
Yeah.
And so where did you learn about that?
So, our pastors have been talking a lot about that,
Mm-hmm.
and it was after my birthday, it was when Johnny gave me that, Bible handbook
Mm-hmm.
that it actually taught, or it had something about that that said, prayer is too important. You have to do it. And then there was something on my spirit that just said, do it. Set that up.
That's good.
So,
That's really good. It gives you a purpose. It gives you
mhm,
the ability to look and be thankful for what you have
mhm,
and be thankful for what you had.
yeah,
Because ultimately, one thing that we need to look at is, and I know this is kind of different to look at, but I'm thankful that your dad came into my life. I'm very, very thankful for that.
yeah,
Um, because without him, A, I wouldn't be in the US. B, I wouldn't have you. And C, I wouldn't have your brother. So
yeah,
I'm thankful that he loved me enough to have me come to the States. We got married. We were married for 24 years. And that is very, very important.
and I'm happy
Those
that he also stayed, like, for as long as he did
mhm.
because, the other lady that is in our church, her son wasn't so lucky there. His dad passed away at when he was, what, 4? Yeah, 4.
4. Mhm.
So, he barely got very much time with him,
Mhm.
and I don't I don't wanna know what that is like, not even knowing your dad.
Mhm.
I at least knew him and actually had a relationship with him.
Mhm.
He only really knew him for 4 years of his life, and you usually don't gain consciousness and remember stuff until you're 5.
Mhm.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. The things that we have to look back on with your dad, and it's still very, very difficult for me to kind of look back. Um, but if I had to, the things, there are some amazing things that he and I did, and
Mhm.
very, very thankful for those things. There's some things that weren't phenomenal,
Yes.
but it was still an experience, and it was still a learning curve that you both go through. We got married. He was 25. I was 22, and so we had a lot of experience in life that we had to learn going
Mhm.
forward. So yeah, like what have we done um that I learned from him? I grew up. I became an adult with him. Now
Yeah.
Peggy, she actually put a comment in here, and she says, "Any lessons from this that you are thankful for?" And what do you think, Andrew? Any lessons from what we've gone through that you're thankful for?
Mm, uh, hmm. None that I can think of at the current moment. Do you wanna go first on this one?
Sure. One of the things that I'm very, very thankful for, and this is a lesson, is that one, we were able to get into a therapist as soon as we were, that he was phenomenal in getting us through to where we were able to switch to another therapist.
And he
For
he did this for free too.
Yeah, he did it all pro bono. And he was the only therapist in his practice that would touch us. And I say it like that because, no one else wanted to take our case on because 3 people at Christmas time was very difficult. Um, but he got us through, I think, the first 3 months, which were pretty, pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And he did a phenomenal job with that. So that's why I say, having a therapist is vital. But then we were able to find our next therapist. Now, unfortunately, your brother's had a little bit more issues with therapy because
Yeah.
he's on different insurance, and his therapist left the practice, and he had to find a new one, and he was looking for someone he liked. But for you and I, we're still with that second therapist. So,
Mhm.
what lesson from therapy have you kind of learned, and what are you not afraid of now?
Well, me being on this podcast tells me that I'm not afraid to speak out by any means. And for a while, I had a little bracelet that says, you matter. You have it too. It's just mine broke.
Yep.
And since that thing broke, I put it in the china cabinet with my old cross necklace.
Hmm. How has
Um,
therapy helped you?
it's helped me increase my faith and actually told me how to do it.
Okay.
If anything, it was more guidance, like an extension of the church.
Because
And
we go to a Christian therapy office. That was one thing that I was looking for because I wanted to have that basis for you and your brother. Now your brother's I think your brother kind of veered from that because of the situation he was in, but you and I've stayed. Now with Lindsay, how do you feel that you've kind of progressed with her?
I'm starting to run out of things that actually affect me, like about dad.
Hey, Peggy.
Hey, Becky.
Oh, you're muted.
Wanted to make sure when I was in the backstage that I didn't say anything to come through. You know, you've got a lot to be thankful for, Andrew. To be honest, if you think about it, where you're sitting at, you're in a unique position to where with your Eagle Scouts and everything, if you decide to be a
Yeah.
counselor for other kids that have been through this, you can relate to them and help them through this.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be thankful for on a deeper level that I don't think you've even looked at yet.
I said at church camp that I do want to be part of some sort of ministry. And oh yeah, church camp. One of that's also something I'm thankful for. They actually helped me forgive dad. And that was 6 months after.
Mm-hmm.
So that was quick.
That is very quick.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. But it just goes to show how much faith can get you.
Mm-hmm. But for you as well, um, you can look forward to your future and see where you want to go. And because of the experiences that you've had, like Peggy just said,
Yeah.
you could be a counselor. Like if you decided to not go into meteorology, you could go into the counseling route and help other kids that are in the situation, or talking to other people, vets, adults, whomever, and helping them. Because imagine being a counselor and then having your dad at that point, because your dad did talk to you a lot.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
When there's a lot of church camps that'll do summer camps, and people will go to college, and then during the summer they go work at the church camps as counselors.
Mm-hmm.
I went to church camp growing up. It was a very enlightening and wonderful experience that I'll always remember and cherish.
They had said at the end of the camp that this past camp was probably one of the best groups that they've had in a very, very long time.
Oh yeah. Oh look, there's a pretty cat.
Yes, this is Annie. She's our cat. Something I haven't shared with y'all, I don't believe, is my uncle committed suicide.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Yeah. I was the one that got the call and had to tell the family and everything.
Oh.
It was very difficult. I was law enforcement at the time in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And it's even being law enforcement, showing up to scenes, it's never easy. Ever. It's a chain reaction that people don't see that goes out. It affects not just those immediately around them, but people in the career fields that have to deal with identifying them and what they did.
Mm-hmm.
And I would know. I was the first one to get it out in the first place.
He found his dad, so yeah.
But I know being in that spot too, I've had medication that made me suicidal, and it's never easy being in that spot either. You don't feel like you have anybody, even when you have people around you.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a chemical imbalance, you honestly believe that nobody cares, no matter what anybody says.
And see, this is part of what my mission is. And I never thought I'd ever have a mission in life. Who would have thought at 47 I was going to have this huge mission? But my mission is to talk to veterans and people about mental illness because my husband had mental illness, undiagnosed, but it was. My husband was in the Air Force, so he was a veteran. He was a disabled veteran. And I talked to vets about it because when you hear statistics, that's a scary thing. And
numbers can be scary.
yeah, David suggested something today, which was, huge. And, Mike was saying he's going to go ahead and do it, which is do a QR code for our Facebook group so that people can find it, or maybe do 2 QR codes, one for the Facebook group and one for this podcast, to remind people that, look, this is something that you may not need it, but you may know someone who needs it. And I'm honest to God, I know this sounds funny, I'm thankful for my big mouth, and so is my therapist, because I'm not going to be quiet about it. When people ask me, and I'll tell them, well, my husband committed suicide in December, and I get the look, but if you don't say something to somebody, you never know who you're going to impact.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Becky, I wasn't walking a year ago. My husband was having to help transfer me between this hospital bed and a power chair. And in January, I wanted to kill myself. And so I got admitted and we got off the medication that was causing the suicidal thoughts, thank goodness. And I'm doing better now. And I'm walking now, thanks to meditation.
Awesome.
Yeah. Nice. With meditation, I was able to heal myself, and if I ended it in January, I wouldn't be here to share the knowledge that I learned from doing that. And I'm
you can find that silver lining in all that you went through, and that's huge. And I do this, like, I can do the same thing too. I can find the silver lining in, okay, yes, my husband committed suicide and he left me with the kids and left me with all of this to handle. And I used to say I have the world on my shoulders, and my therapist went, no. Yeah. You have plates. Your plate is full. It's not the world. It's not on your shoulders. You have plates that are full. But, having to navigate all this stuff, I now could be an advocate for someone else. I know someone who's, their husband, veteran, committed suicide 3 or 4 months ago. She's not handling it well. I've reached out. I've told her about the podcast. I told her about the Facebook group. She is in a widows group that I was in, and I still am. But I've tried to share because I have a big mouth, and I'd much rather use it.
Wisdom comes from experience. So yeah. There you go.
And unfortunately, I think I probably could say that I overshare with this, but at the same time, I don't think there's anything that's called, you can't overshare with this. My husband's father, he came to visit us in April because he wasn't able to go to the funeral. So he came out in April and they went to the cemetery. I won't go. And, he was talking to me, I'm from that generation of, we don't talk about suicide because of the Vietnam War and blah, 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 blah. And I flipped the switch on him and I went, because of that stigma is the problem. And that's what I'm trying to talk against, because I don't want someone else to be sitting in my shoes.
They didn't even tell my aunt and my uncle about how he died
until May.
Yeah.
They didn't, it was not said. All that people said was he was driving to work and lost control. It is a true statement, but even his best friend from high school thought he got in a car accident until he found out that that he took his life. So you kind of have to look. Is that Olive?
No, that's
okay.
Our great dane over in the corner.
The door is completely locked. There is no animals in this room.
My dog does that too, and I thought she might be in the office with Andrew.
The door is locked. I wanted to make sure Kyle didn't hear.
I'll put myself backstage.
Oh, no, you're good. Actually, it makes me laugh because I'm going, the animals, I'm thankful for them too, because they do give you a level of stress relief. And it's actually a chemical thing that when you pet an animal, it releases the serotonin and endorphins in your brain They give you that relaxing feeling. So when you're stressed out and you can't function, you need to find an animal.
And
If you're allergic to them, don't.
our cat Tabby was a big stress reliever. The fat
Mhm.
cat, yes.
Yes. So it's one of those that, finding the right things around you, the animals, the kids, the family. For us, it was the network of people that rallied around us that, I can't even I can never say thank you enough to them
Yes.
for what they did. The number of people who dropped everything to be at our house or to help with something was phenomenal. So yeah.
Mhm.
And I mean, I look and I don't know, you probably heard it earlier, but I'm thankful for you, Peggy, and for Mike and for Granny Lisa, because if it weren't for me having a big mouth again and talking to Mike Madsen, who got me in contact with Granny, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. And we may not be impacting someone else's life in a positive way and turning the scales to the positive and not the negative.
Right.
So yeah.
Well,
So
I
yeah,
know I've been reading reports out of Canada about the assisted suicides that they're having now.
oh,
And after I had complex renal pain syndrome, degenerative disc disease, and multiple other incurable diseases that
Mhm.
I've healed from. And now hearing this, that people are just giving up and they're assisting them, it's really disappointing because if you could heal from stuff with meditation, why give up?
Mhm.
There's so much out there that we don't know still that
There was a vet story that came out of there. There's a female vet who was in a wheelchair, and she was talking to the Canadian VA because she needed a new chair, and the person who worked at the VA basically went, well, there's the MAIDS program, and that's the medically assisted suicide program. And they basically suggested maybe you should just look at that. Now, obviously, the person got remanded and it made the news and it was a big issue. And, apparently it hasn't happened since. But one suggestion like that can change an entire community's lives because one person went, okay, yeah, I'll do that.
right, because they feel
So,
like they're a burden on somebody at that point.
right. And you're never a burden.
No.
It may feel like to yourself you're being a burden to someone, but if it's the choice of having to bury someone or having them be a burden, I'm sorry, I'll take the burden every day of the week.
Yes.
So yeah, and I don't want to ever have to have a conversation with another widow because her husband took their life, or another widower whose wife took their life. Like, I don't want to do that. I will do it. And it's a club I don't want anyone to be in, but when they're in it, I will welcome them with open arms because they need the support. Because their support network is not there anymore. And that was the biggest piece for me. So, that's where having the right people in your corner is so vitally important,
Mhm.
and knowing who to go to and not to be afraid to ask a question. Like when I say I'm not afraid to ask a question, I was doing all the insurance paperwork because we have 4 policies. I mean, 3 of
Yeah.
them are little, but we had 4 policies. And having to write that paperwork out. I had one friend who I would literally go, I need you to read this and make sure that's right. And if I had to email somebody a billing, or not billing question, like an insurance question or an HR question, I always had him in copy in the email because I wanted another set of eyes to look at it to make sure I was filling it out right, that I wasn't letting emotions get into it, that I wasn't missing something. Because I didn't sleep. I didn't eat for weeks.
We
Because
had
you
to
just
redo a bunch of passport applications because I mean, a lot of that stress did get to you,
Mhm.
and I had to write some of that out.
So yeah, I look at it and I don't want anyone to have to go through this. And, that's why I'm thankful for this podcast and, thankful for David or no, for Mike. So whoever suggested the whole thing about the QR code, like that's huge because that's a great way to market this to make sure that you get the word out. And it's just a quick little I might even put it on a sticker and put it on my car because it would not hurt, and put it on your car too, Andrew.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely, I'm thankful for the way everything's kind of played out. I wish it hadn't. I wish I wasn't in this situation, but I have so many things to be thankful for. And I hope that anyone who's even contemplating this can sit and write down or figure out what they're grateful for, what they're thankful for. And there are gratitude journals out there that you can just write stuff down. Look at your family, look at your friends.
I have a question for both of you looking back. Are there signs that you're thankful if you look back now that if you see it again in somebody else, you can say, hey, stop. Wait a minute. We need to sit and talk.
Oh, Andrew.
Yes. I spent more than enough time with him, and I saw all the signs, just didn't know. So, yes, I would definitely recognize them, and I would definitely sit and talk to them.
What are some of
Because
the signs?
just degrading themselves, saying everyone's going to be okay without me, and the world's better without me, and
Talking about life insurance policies to the 16-year-old kid.
Yes.
That was when I didn't know those conversations were going on.
And I thought you did.
The only thing my husband said to me, yes, we would sit downstairs and we would watch, very clean, Pureflix type, Pureflix and The Chosen and things like that. We would do that together, and that was like our time together. But he was not.
I would come downstairs. You would go upstairs, and then after that, I would be comforting him until like 2:00 in the morning.
So, emotional breakdowns. That's one of the things. The dogs got in a fight, and we broke it up just before Thanksgiving, and he collapsed on the ground because he could not handle that between two animals. He couldn't handle it. So that would be a sign. If you emotionally can't handle, if you can see someone emotionally breaking down over something so tiny in the big scheme of things, that's an indicator.
Mm-hmm.
And actually for my husband, it really started probably at the beginning of COVID or even sooner, because he was getting very, very stressed out at work. And that was, I think the stress was the catalyst that tipped him over the edge, but he was kind of there already. We just couldn't see it at that point. He's sitting at his desk in the living room, cursing and swearing like a sailor at work.
And he would do that until he was saved, and then he just bottled it up.
Yeah, he got baptized. So as a sign, that's one of them. Or, like he asked me to pray with him one night. He crawled into bed and he asked me to pray. Or if the person is all of a sudden much more attached to you, hold on to that. Find out what is drawing them in. Because typically my husband and I, we were, when we were together, we were, holding hands and doing all that. But it wasn't one of those things that he would crawl into bed with me while I was going to sleep, because he worked midnight. So he'd stay up until I go to sleep, and then, he would leave. That wasn't normal. He started doing things like that. So that should have been an indicator.
He would never actually say, come here, son. Come here. Hug, please.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he had said at one night.
Mm-hmm.
He never did that. It was just nice hug. Then we'd move on with our day/night.
Mm-hmm. So those are really kind of some of those little indicators, but everybody is different. So I would say if someone is acting out of the norm. Right.
If they're spiraling in a negative pattern, negative way, constant negative, and don't want to be touched or anybody around them, then I say pay attention. And
it can go either way.
Yeah. Right. And if you're in that situation and you're having negative thoughts, think 3 positive ones. Keep doing it until the negative thoughts go away. Let people know what thoughts are going through your head. And if you recently changed medication, go look at the side effects. Because something as simple as medication changed and your diet even. You could be allergic to something and it triggered a chemical imbalance. You never know.
Someone actually suggested my husband's thyroid.
See? That's
someone's after the fact, but they suggested it could have been his thyroid that changed the chemicals in his brain at the same time. So yeah, like you never know.
You don't. If you've never been suicidal and you don't have a reason to go that route, then stop and think, call somebody, talk to somebody, get it off your chest, please. Make sure if you see somebody that's going down the rabbit hole and they're not coming up for air, that you call and check on them.
Call and check on people that you love anyway. I mean, you may not see the signs until they're talking to you.
Yeah.
Because I will tell you that I brushed this off because this was years and years and years ago. But my husband said, he goes, if you ever leave me and I have to pay like child support or alimony, he goes, I'll just kill myself. I would never think anything of that. It was just like, no, you're not. Don't even say that. And then I'm now in that situation.
I even said that when he was talking about life insurance. Just stop. Don't say that.
But we never, it was never an issue. We didn't have any problems in our marriage. Things were, as far as I knew, the stars, the sun, and the moon rose and set around this man. Everything was roses and, unicorns. But obviously for him, it wasn't. And he asked me one day, just before, when I say just before, it was the Saturday after Thanksgiving. Maybe it was the week after. Anyway, he said to me, if we had to live in a box, would you still love me? And I looked at him and I said, of course. He goes, no. If we had to live in a box, I said, absolutely, I would still love you. Like, we're not going to lose the house. Don't even say that. And, within 2 weeks, he was in a box. So that's an indicator. Weird questions about the future could be that indicator where all you got to do is ask, like, hey, how are you feeling?
He was questioning, like, how me and Kyle were gonna take care of him if we were gonna be like, if he was gonna be like a burden to me or him. I was just, what? We'll be able to take care of you. Don't worry. You're fine. You're not a burden to anyone.
Could he have had some underlying medical illness that y'all were unaware of?
Well, he had a family history of mental illness. He had a few aunts that were committed. His mom suffered from major depression, probably about a year before. She'd had it previously, and there were some other things that she confided in me later on that would be indicators. But I knew that there was a family history, but I never saw it in him. And I guess in the back of my mind, I always figured that if you're military, they've already done all those screenings on you. But his mental illness didn't rear its ugly head until he'd been out of the Air Force for over 20 years. So it can happen at any time, and it can happen to anybody. But when you look at the vets and what a lot of them have been through, like someone described to me last night, he was like, basic training is like PTSD. They're breaking you down to get through everything so that you work as a team, but no one ever treats you for what they did to you in basic training. And that was the start of your career, and if you were in for Desert Storm and, all that stuff, then who's to say that there's not something going on? So, if there's even an inkling in your head that there could be a little bit going on, or if you as a spouse or a child see that, children are never going to be able to tell unless they're adults. But you need to get that person to talk to a counselor. Even start with your pastor, start with a clergy person of some sort, or someone that you trust that can give you the guidance.
Trying to push him into therapy and he just continuously refused?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what helped me, which is going to sound odd. I was brought up Christian,
Mm-hmm.
and I started looking into Buddhism because the VA was teaching meditation, but I felt there was an element missing and I was not getting it. So I
Mm-hmm.
knew the Buddhist monks meditated. I looked up to them when I was in the military in times of hardship to be stronger. And so I was like, okay, I'll go learn from them. And
Mm-hmm.
I started learning from them and learned that their classes are not religion, it's a mind, body, soul user guide, basically, is what
Mm-hmm.
it breaks down to. And the Four Noble Truths is suffering. And when you look at the suffering and you have these thoughts and stuff, when you start looking at the source of your suffering and stuff in meditation, you start getting better and those thoughts start going away and your mind starts calming. And that's how I started getting my head right. And it's really amazed me. The classes we have coming up this next week are on anger and how to handle your anger, because they say it's best to stay middle path, because if you let your anger take hold or if you let happiness take hold, either way, you can spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And the spiral, even if it's a happy spiral, people can get hurt around you because you're not paying attention, just like the negative spiral.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. Look at your religions. Look at like I said, look at Buddhism, because honestly, I do not consider it a religion. I consider it a philosophy class and how to actually control your mind, body, and spirit and live right.
And if you're on medication and you feel like something is not right, then you need to speak up for yourself, because that's one thing that I learned, especially when Andrew was born. I was in the hospital, and the nurse practitioner came in and she released me, and I was like, I'd never seen that woman a day in my life, but I had to be the advocate for myself and for my child, and told the nurses that I'd seen all the whole time, I don't know who that lady was. And they're like, oh, well, she works at the practice. I'm like, I've never met her. So until someone proves that she's who she is, and they went, we've never had a patient ask that. You have to be your own advocate. And if you can't be, you have to make sure that you've got someone who can be for you. And you have to have that trusted person that you can go to and go, I need you as an advocate. And that's what I
Dad
was
has
saying.
absolutely no advocate. Well, he did. It's just he.
Oh, your dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
But but here's the thing. He didn't trust me enough to say something to me about it. The closest thing he said to me was that he felt like he was being attacked by demons. But to me, that didn't resonate. Like I didn't clue into it because it wasn't something that was more obvious. Yes, he was depressed. Yes, we could see the anxiety and the stress, and it impacted our family to the point where, this year we're not putting a Christmas tree up. I will never put a Christmas tree up in the house that we're in now.
We didn't even decorate the tree last year.
Our tree was up for 2 weeks and there was no decorations on it. It was a pre-lit, so of course it was lit, but that was it. No decorations. And I sent all the Christmas presents that I bought for him except for two. I sent everything back. Because what do I need it for? I bought these specifically for him. The two that I kept were buried with him. So, and that's one of those things that he did it right before Christmas. So, the saddest thing is the holiday seasons are the hardest times for people, and they're supposed to be the most joyous times for people. And people are supposed to be thankful and happy and, giving. But if someone is living with depression, anxiety, stress, PTSD, medication issues, whatever it is, that could be the hardest time for them. And the family feels it. Like you think you're alone in that feeling, but you're not. Because I even said to my
We're
husband the night
social people. We'll feel things that other people feel.
the night my husband killed himself, I had already said to him, I said to him before he walked out the door, I need you to go to your doctor and get put on some medication. I turned around, let the dogs in, looked at him and said, if you need to go find a counselor, and if you can't find one, I will find one for you. And I don't remember what he said to me, whether, oh, okay, whatever. But he'd already made that decision. And I don't think there was any changing once he made that decision. So, but I probably could have gotten to him beforehand had I known. So that's where your question about the signs, that's huge. But everybody's signs could be different.
Right.
So you have to really know who the individual is that you're living with, or you're friends with, or you're close enough with. So don't be afraid to talk. Oh my God. I mean, seriously, like, and I'm not saying that for you or Andrew. I'm just saying in general, if you need help from someone, you need to talk to somebody. And I don't care if it's, you call me. That's the whole thing. I'm like, call me, call, Andrew, call whomever, but make that phone call or reach out to somebody, even at the very beginning when you're starting to feel it. Don't let it escalate to a point where then you're done, because you're going to mess up your whole family. So I'm, for all of this stuff that has gone on, I'm thankful. I know this is going to sound twisted, but I'm thankful that it happened, because I'm now a voice for people who are who could be in my situation or could be in my husband's situation, and I'm talking against it. So, and I know that sounds really twisted, but I, you know, I have to look at a positive side of this. And unfortunately, suicide is not the positive side I'm looking for, but at least I can be the advocate. I can be the big mouth. I can, go on the suicide walks and I talked to one guy at a vendor event because he had a suicide prevention shirt on, and he said, I struggle with it every day. And I went, I need you here tomorrow, and I need you here the next day. And then I turned around after I was done talking to him, and I went and bawled because it was just so emotional. It was April. It was 4 months
Are we
after my
gonna do
husband.
like a 5K for suicide prevention?
We'll talk about it later, but yes, yeah. So it's and I never thought of it this way, but now I have to, and now it's a big part of my life, and I'm not afraid to discuss it, and I'm not afraid to say my husband committed suicide, because you never know who needs to hear what your story is. So yeah, sorry, I have a big mouth.
Hey, I just came in to chat a little bit, and we've gone over an hour, so it's up to you what we do now. Yes.
Well, I'm okay with calling it an evening, because I got to go to dinner. I'm actually in southwest of New Orleans for a friend's reception. So I'm going to see a whole bunch of veterans tomorrow. And Andrew's at home in Georgia. So, I'm just enjoying it. But, being thankful is very, very difficult for some people. And if you notice that someone's having a hard time being thankful and grateful for what they have, you might need to have that, not have a conversation with them thinking they're going to go down that path, but have a conversation with them. Reach out to somebody. What's the phone call? Yeah, tell them you love them. But what's that phone commercial? Reach out and touch someone. A hug goes a long way.
Yes, it does.
So yeah,
absolutely.
But I'm gonna take like Granny Smith side of things, or Granny Lisa. I don't know where I got Granny Smith from. Oh, apples. Ha. But I am going to say this. So if you're struggling with thoughts of suicide, you're not grateful, you're not thankful, you're looking at everything, there is a suicide hotline, and just out 988. You're needed. Someone in your life needs you. Maybe a whole lot more people than you realize need you. And the impact that you're taking something away from them without their choice, without their consent, is not okay. So you're needed. We need you here. And, reach out. And if you're a friend or a family, reach out to someone else. Don't be afraid to talk to them. So, yes. So I'll end this if you guys are good with that.
Sounds like a plan. Happy birthday, Marine Corps, and happy Veterans Day to all my fellow veterans out there. You guys have a good weekend. Take care.
Thank you. Everybody.
The U.S. has seen a staggering 70% increase in teen suicide. Children aren't equipped to handle these situations. There are so many resources for both teens and parents.
Are we an open family?
Yeah.
I think we are. Is everything okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. Actually, there's something we should talk about. As a family. So, this is hard for me to talk about, but I think it's important.